Good morning and welcome to the Foster Swift Sports Talk podcast. I'm your host, Dave Russell. I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Charlie Sarche and Tony Delamonte. Today we're joined by Nate Schafer, the owner of 3D Athlete, and also MJ Myles, one of the main trainers there at 3D Athlete. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate you having us.
Yeah, can you just start off by just telling us a little bit about 3D Athlete and what you do there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with high school athletes are kind of our main base of clientele, but obviously we work with some college athletes when they're around, and then pro athletes as well when they're around in the area. And basically what happened is I had some injuries in high school, and then I got hooked up with a guy after going through a number of different doctors and physical therapists, a gentleman named Gary Gray. And Gary kind of took me under his wing, and he developed a system for movement called applied functional science. And Gary's been around since the 70s, and he's considered to be one of the top professionals in the world when it comes to just movement training. And he kind of took me under his wing, and in 2009, I started going into high schools just as I saw a need for it, and it wasn't something that I planned on doing long term. I actually wanted to teach and coach high school football. But then it just kind of kept building, and here we are today, like 17, 18 years later. So, it's been fun ride, good ride. Fortunate to meet just a lot of great people along the way and work with a lot of great athletes like your kids, Dave. Just keep looking forward to moving forward. So,
and where are you guys based out of?
The facility's in Lansing, but we travel to a lot of local high schools as well. So we're mobile.
Do you bring your own equipment when you travel?
We do.
Okay.
Yep. In my car, it's a disaster. Yeah. I've got. If you look at my car right now, I got pool noodles in there. I've got bands. My trunk is loaded with stuff. So
you're always ready.
We're always ready to rock.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yep.
MJ, give us your story.
So I'm from around here. I went to high school at Corona High School. It's not too far away from here. Most of my siblings graduated from East Lansing, but after that, after college and all those things, I was in Ann Arbor, Saline area, and I started just doing CrossFit myself. It's kind of just like I need to get back into working out. Then enjoyed it, and what people think about CrossFit, the one thing that exposed me to when I started coaching was just a lot of people. So like I would coach 5-6 classes a day and have 15 to 20 people in those classes, just ranging in high school all the way to 7 years old. So I got to see just how people moved very differently, than how to modify these workouts for them very differently. So that just really exposed me to movement, and then I started loving coaching. And then when I was there, I got into the Saline schools and started like getting those kids to come train. So I started a big high school program there. And then I was like, you know what? I want to move back home. So I moved back home, and funny enough, I started doing the same thing, a little bit of CrossFit, and then Nate actually trained me when I was in 8th grade at Corona. It must have been like his first year.
You're old, Nate.
I know.
I think it was 2009 when I was in 8th grade. So I just remembered everything that I didn't have them a ton, but stuff that I learned, I was like, this is different, but this feels right. So then I was like, you know what, I want to get back connected to Nate. So I just messaged him and we talked for a little bit, kind of shadowed him for a little bit. And that's how I kind of got the ball rolling with 3D. I had already been in some of the local schools around here as well. He's been into it forever. I was kind of into it with a different program. So kind of just felt right when we got together. So yeah, been there ever since.
So one of the things we were talking about before we started recording was, the change, since when I was a kid to now, and, you look at club sports, AAU, whatever it may be. And I mean, it's really accelerated. And I think performance training really has too. I mean, have you seen that just in the times that you founded 3D?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Even since I was in high school, there was no travel 7-on-7. I was more of a football guy, but there was no travel 7-on-7. AAU basketball was kind of just starting out. The workload that these kids go through now is absolutely incredible. I was talking to a mom about a month or so ago on the phone, and her daughter is now in college. She's playing college basketball, but we were talking about the amount of games that she played, and she'll play over 100 games. She would have played over 100 games in some, summers over the course of a year. And I mean, that's more than an NBA season. So, I mean, the workload that these kids have between, multiple sports, workouts, AAU practice, and then you just throw in obviously the academic load and stuff. I mean, it's quite incredible. So I couldn't imagine being a kid now, to be honest.
You have to start early too, right? I mean, to really excel in your sport in high school, you got to get into travel and everything early. How soon are people contacting you to start training?
We get kids contacting us, or parents contacting us for their kids at 7, 8 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really incredible, to be honest. And I think a lot is actually lost with that because, you get really early specialization in sports. So you are learning like sport-specific movements. That doesn't mean you move well as an athlete. And then also, you're getting introduced to weight training. But at the same time, you don't understand how important movement is. And we have really early specialization in early weightlifting, but at the same time, just basic movement skills, a lot of kids really lack in those areas. So that's a big problem that we see is you get kids that come in and they don't know how to skip. They don't know how to karaoke. But at the same time, they're at their school and they're lifting extremely heavy, but the basic movement patterns, those foundations weren't laid. So that's kind of where we come in and try to help kids, mitigate the risk of, injuries and obviously level up their movement quality.
Yeah, and as you talked about earlier, my daughter Abby works with you, and what I really saw during the recruiting process is we would go to these camps and they would do these kind of small side drills where they're moving in small spaces. And I mean, not to brag about my daughter, but she looked really good in those situations, and I credit you for that, for training her in that way, and you can really see it. And I know there's a lot of crazy parents out there like myself that that want their kids to do well. I'm assuming you get a lot of that, and I'm sure that kids want to start young, or parents want their kids to start young.
Well, first, I want to credit your genetics for your daughter.
That's my wife.
Don't
give him that.
So we'll give you the credit for that, and she's an extremely hard worker. So I mean, all the credit goes to her. But sorry, what was your question again? Sorry.
Well, I guess what's your advice to parents is when should they be starting? Because I look at it as I'm kind of a crazy sports dad, and I know a lot of other crazy sports dads being on the circuit. So I'm sure you're getting a lot of that from parents like, hey, I want Junior to be an NFL player. So what's your advice? When should they be starting? What should they be doing it from a young age?
I mean, my advice to parents is more is not always better. You got to let kids be kids. And I think a lot of what used to happen in physical education classes, if you look back at videos of, physical education classes in the 70s, people were climbing ropes, they were squatting, they were learning foundational movement skills. They were, doing karaoke, they were competing in different ways. Now, that stuff isn't near as important and isn't a big part of our curriculum. So I would say, we got to let kids be kids. And the early specialization, there certainly are some benefits to it. I mean, I think it does make our athletes better at their sport, but also like in the process, I think we're losing out on a lot of just basic movement skills and things that we need to have like long, happy, healthy bodies. So I would say, we got to let kids be kids, and you have to kind of decide what is too much for your kid, but doing 3 practices a day, I wouldn't advise that. So I don't know, MJ, do you have any specific?
Yeah. I mean, I think my sister has kids that are getting 10 and 12 now, and she asks those things, and I'm like, okay, as long as your kids and they are playing. So what I mean by playing is are they climbing monkey bars? Are they outside playing games? They just got a soccer ball and you got 2 cones. What are you going to do? They're going to make up a game. It might not be soccer, basketball, whatever. They're just going to make some stuff up. If they're playing, I don't think they need necessarily to always come in. I think what parents are finding more difficult is their kids are just not playing and they're having a hard time getting them to play, climb, hang, do those types of things. So then I think it is more necessary if you're like, I'm just having a hard time, get them to come in. And then when they come see us, they're going to play. They're not going to be doing like super specialized stuff like that. They're going to be kids, like he just said. They're going to play. And I think that's really important now. And like you said, probably less practices in games are more.
Just more free play.
Yeah.
Just more movement. Like we just need to learn to move. We just need to learn to just have fun and just embrace it. I mean, movement is a gift, and I think as we get older, you mentioned I'm getting old, right? So it's as you get older, it's the gift becomes more and more valuable to you, and those movement skills are established at a young age. So what we always talk about is, and it's been a topic for a long time, but is movement literacy, right? And what is movement literacy? And movement literacy is the ability to take a skill in our mind and apply it in 3 planes of motion, because that's the way that you move. And that's kind of what Gary Gray established, my mentor back in the 70s, right? Like, so can you skip forward? Can you skip laterally? Can you skip rotationally? Can you see a skill and can you apply it? It's like reading a book, right? Like, how well can you take the information, process it, and then apply it into your life? And it's the same thing with movement. So, hey, can you jump forward? Can you jump sideways? Can you jump rotationally, right? So those things are just really not existent. You're either in the weight room or you're doing your sport, you're practicing. But at the same time, you can be strong, you can be good at your sport, but that doesn't mean you move well. And there are a lot of athletes that we see, even really high-level athletes, that are really good, but then you ask them to do something that they should be able to do that's extremely basic in nature, and they can't do it. And it's just from exposure. And the younger that we can expose athletes to those things, and just people in general to those things, the better that they're going to move forward, and the better their foundation is going to be to lay those sport-specific skills on and to get into the weight room and develop that strength.
So do you develop a plan? I guess when someone comes to you and you're putting a workout together,
Yep.
What are athletes doing at 3D? Like, are you doing cone drills? Like, what are they doing to develop those sort of movement skills?
That's a great question, and the answer is it depends. Okay. I don't know how to give you a better answer than that, but I mean, the first thing that we want to do is we want to see our athletes move, right? Like, we want to see them move laterally. We want to see them obviously run, sprint, those sorts of things. We want to see them react. We want to see how well you're going to move in space, how well you can take a skill and then do the movement fast. So yeah, I mean, we do cone drills. We do a lot of the traditional stuff that you see, but we also do some stuff that's not so traditional as well. And it just varies from individual to individual, and it varies based on what the athlete's already doing too, right? So like, we always tell people, if somebody's already lifting and they're in a consistent weightlifting program at their school, it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to come to us and, back squat more, which no problem with back squatting. It's a great exercise, but we're going to work on things that they're not doing already. So we can build on some skills that might be missing and just kind of connect the dots.
So do you guys have specialties yourselves in what you do? Like, MJ, do you specialize in some sports, then Nate, you specialize in others, or do you all just kind of do everything?
No, I wouldn't say we specialize in any particular sport. I mean, a lot of my philosophy came from Nate, and then my experiences, and then a mentor of mine that I started working with probably a year and a half ago, just on kind of seeing injuries or seeing people in pain and learning how to get them out of pain. So you could say rehab, but it's a little bit different in that aspect. But other than that, I wouldn't say we have too many different philosophies, I guess. Or
no, movement's movement. So it's people talk about sport specific, and we like to just call it athlete specific, right? Like, how well can you move forward? How well can you move laterally? How well can you move rotationally? How well can you take a skill and put it into practice? In my opinion, a lot of athletes are already getting enough skill specific work, so we need to get them away from the skill specific work and get them just moving in space and just get them comfortable, performing, an explosive movement laterally, because a lot of times they just don't have the ability to do it, or they struggle with that. So we need to kind of just lay the foundation for them to do that.
I always laugh. You hear coaches talk about, well, we want multi-sport athletes, but really most of them don't. When it gets down to it, they want them to be playing their sport year round. But I do believe that there's a benefit to having multi-sport athletes. We talked about Abby. She plays 3 sports, although I wish she only played 2. But I think there's some value in that. And would you agree that from an injury prevention standpoint, that playing multiple sports is a good thing?
Absolutely. Yes, 100%. Yeah, just because it exposes you to different movement skills. Every sport's a little different from a movement standpoint. And, the analogy that I always got from Gary is, if you take a hammer and you pound yourself in the head in the same spot over and over again, you're going to get sore really quick. Okay. But if you take that hammer and you spread it out throughout your head, it's still going to hurt, right? But it's not going to be near as painful. So it's the same thing for your body. I mean, if you're doing a repetitive movement over and over again, that wear and tear is going to come a lot sooner than, if you're kind of doing different things. So, yes, I totally agree. Playing multiple sports is great. It's great for developing athleticism. It's great for just, developing a foundation of just general movement. So, yeah, I'm all for multi-sports. I to this day, I still believe kids should at least do 2 sports. With all the AAU and all that, I mean, I think it's very challenging to do more than 2 now, especially, if you're in a sport that requires, a lot of travel and a lot of summer work and a lot of stuff outside of your school. But, I'm still a big believer that we should do 2 sports.
Yeah, I remember going from football season and you think you're in good shape, and then basketball comes around and the first day you do zigzag drills, you're like, oh my God, things hurt that haven't hurt in a long time. So it's just different muscles, different movements.
Yep.
So are you concerned at all about I think with the starting kids younger, you see some kids who reach college and they've probably played 10 times more games than kids 20 years ago did. Just in terms of that pounding. Is that something that you guys try to, injury prevent as well? Because everyone is doing so many things in the AAU and the club, and is that something that you guys are concerned about?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. It's something that you definitely have to take into consideration when they come and see you. You might have someone you plan to do, some explosive jumps and stuff like that. They come in and you're like, wow, yeah, you have no more explosive jumps in you today. We need to work on something else. But to also, with the injury prevention and kind of piggybacking off that is why multi-sports can be really beneficial is if you think of your muscles as having capacity or money in the bank, you want to have more and more money in the bank for that muscle, right? And then the longer that muscle is, the more expensive it is. So the more money you need to have for that particular muscle. That's why moving in these 3 planes of motion is really important, because you're going to be doing that on the field. And if those muscles don't have the money in the bank, then that's when injuries happen. So that's why I think strengthening and then doing it also at speed is really important, because you need to have that money in the bank, like I like to say.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any insight then on what happened to the Lions defense last year with all the injuries? Anything you were seeing?
It's so hard because you don't. I think the thing that a lot of people don't realize is strength coaches, especially at that level, they have such little control over what people are doing that it's too much to. There's too many variables that could go into it, and I mean so many things that are uncontrollable. Sleep, hydration. If you were out partying the night before, like all those sorts of things are going to make you, more or less susceptible to an injury. And then also, a lot of those athletes aren't around and aren't a part of their workouts over the course of, the off season. So, it's hard to speculate on that.
Sure.
There's certainly stuff that you can do, that I think limits the risk of injuries. But at the same time, at the end of the day, it's, anytime you go out there and play a sport, there's certainly a risk. And the more you play the sport and the more you practice and the more you do, the more exposure you have. And the more exposure you have, the more likely something is to happen. So, again, it's too hard to speculate on that, I think.
Unlucky, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
With the acceleration of recruiting, and now we have revenue sharing in college, and it's, I think we're seeing kind of a trickle down effect in training, and accelerating what high school athletes think they need to do in order to succeed in college. As part of that, are you directly involved in the recruiting process at all?
Every so often, we'll get coaches reach out about athletes. I've definitely had that happen a number of times. But as far as like recruiting to a specific school, no, we're not involved in that at all. But yes, definitely get coaches reaching out sometimes about a specific athlete. And then just, over the years, working with a number of colleges and stuff, I just happen to still know a lot of people that are in the coaching profession. So I would say a couple times a year, I definitely get somebody reaching out. But not heavily involved like in a day-to-day recruiting operation of any kind.
And what's the biggest request you get from athletes, parents? I know I reach out to you.
It varies. I mean, sometimes obviously you get what you just mentioned, like we got to get them faster. Sometimes it's, they don't change direction real well. Sometimes it's, we got to get them stronger, and sometimes it's just kind of the whole enchilada, right? Like everything. So it just varies from individual to individual. And, certain people are obviously like genetically prone to based on body types and that sort of thing to be better at certain things than others. So it just kind of varies from individual to individual. And what we try to do is we just try to adapt to, one, what that person is doing outside of when they're with us, and then two, obviously what their physical strengths and weaknesses are. So
yeah, I think just to piggyback on that, it's also, we talk about this sometimes. It's a lot of parents want just pure data measurables, which I think is really important, right? But also, is that the only way you're going to measure, success? I think a lot of ways you can measure success is, are they better at their sport? Are they moving better? That's something that you can't put on, your 40 time, right? It may not happen on the 40 time, but if they're on the field and they're moving a lot better, then I would say that's a big success as well. So it's sometimes it's hard to measure, where parents sometimes want exact data, which I totally understand. But I think there's just more, just from us seeing it as trainers, more to the picture than just like maybe getting faster or jumping higher or whatever.
In speed in sport, when we're talking change of direction, sports is a lot different than track speed. Yeah. Like track speed, I mean, that's a drag race, right? Like you line up, the gun goes off, you're just running in a straight line as fast as you can. In sports, it's more like a car chase, right? Where there's weaves, there's turns, you're accelerating, you're decelerating, all those sorts of things. So I think that's why you see, a lot of times, like I'm just going to use football, for example, the best players don't necessarily have the best 40 times. It's their ability to get in and out of movements. It's their ability to load and explode. It's their ability to move laterally. It's their ability to like read, react, process. So all those things are extremely important. And like MJ said, the measurables are important, and we do those things all the time. But we also do them in different ways. So, what I'll always tell a kid is, if we're doing a vertical jump, we might integrate some sort of lateral or rotational movement in there as well. And we'll test that and we'll measure that. And I'll tell them, hey, you know what? We want you to be about the same in those movements with that lateral and rotational variability that you would be with just the normal straight up and down. Because when you go up for a rebound in basketball or you go to dunk, you're not just going to go straight up and down all the time. There's going to be a lot of other factors that come into play. So we want to see how well you can control your body in space. I want to see how explosive you are, with those other dimensions kind of added into the equation.
You talked about measurables, and one of the things that I've noticed is, I think people think of combines just in football, but, I know in lacrosse you're seeing that, in soccer you're seeing that. So do you have athletes that are coming in and saying, okay, I have to compete in this combine. Can you help me train for that?
Yeah, we do have that, and a lot of times it happens. They'll be like, "Hey, I got a camp coming up in a couple weeks," and it's like, hey, like we can work on your start, and we can do certain things that are going to help you, be more successful. But as far as like creating an adaptation in that time frame to like physically like actually get you faster, it's going to be tougher to do. Now, again, you can do a lot just by tweaking somebody's start and just teaching them the drills. But yeah, we definitely get people that come and are looking for a quick fix. I think the best analogy that I've ever heard is athleticism, speed, whatever, it grows like a tree. And you know, you want to just be consistent over time. You just want to keep putting money in the bank, keep putting money in the bank, keep putting money in the bank. And it's like an investment, right? It's like putting money in the stock market. Hopefully it just continues to grow over time. So, you know, that's what we always try to tell people is, you know, you'd be better off coming and training once a week over the course of the year than trying to go 3 days a week over the course of the summer and then just shutting it down. Because it's just that long-term exposure that's going to set you up for more success.
Who are some of your guys' notable clients that you've had or success stories that you're proud of? I'm
going to answer that, but I'm going to say that the next person that comes in the door. You know, it honestly, and it's like anything, right? Like in any business, you know, there's stress, and I'm sure you guys experience that too. But at the end of the day, like, I mean, the gift that I've been given initially by Gary, and then just by, you know, all the people around here that we work with, and just the ability to positively impact somebody's day and improve their movement ability is a lot more than you know, a specific, you know, big name individual, and just having the impact like long term. I mean, one of the coolest things I see now, like Alex in the back there, right? Like I come in today and you know, Alex, what was that when we worked together? That would have been, you know, 2012, 2013.
Yeah, I was gonna say close to 10 years probably now.
Yeah, and you're crushing the game now. So just like seeing you be like,
What's Alex's 40? Can we get that?
Nothing to write home
you know,
about.
Alex was a pretty explosive dude. I'll give him that.
All right.
But
Nice.
just seeing him be really successful now, and just, you know, seeing people that you worked with 10, 15 years ago just like flourish in life is the coolest part of my job. And, you know, I was talking to my dad the other day. My dad was in education for 40 years, and it's like, you know, it kind of is being like a teacher in that sense, where, you know, you have those relationships. But to go back to answering your question, you know, we've worked with like Kirk Cousins, Denzel Valentine, Eric Armstead with the 49ers. Just, I mean, some pretty fairly high level guys, but you know, again, that's not a reflection of us. It's a reflection of them, and people being open and seeing a need for, you know, improving movement and how important that is. So,
would you say there's? I mean, I think there's for sure a ceiling for everyone, right? But you know, I take, you know, Reagan. You know, she trained with you, and
Yep.
you know, she probably didn't have the same athletic ability as Abby, but she worked really hard.
She did.
You know, she played D1 lacrosse, and she did. She got
are
faster.
you going to get some crap when you get home for that?
I always do. I talk about the kids a lot on here, but you know, you see the differences. I mean, and to your point, she's in medical school. She's flourishing now.
Yeah,
you know, I'm
exactly.
very proud of her.
Yep.
You brought it back.
Which I did. I did bring it back, right? Yeah. So, but you know, what I want to know though is, you know, when someone walks in, you must know, okay, we have a ceiling here. Do you need to kind of keep their expectations in line, or, you know, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think certain people definitely have more awareness of where they're at and what their ceiling is than others, right? Like, I mean, I've had over the years a lot of people tell me like, hey, you know, I want to go play football at Michigan State, and it's like, you know, it's great to have goals, but at the same time, we need to be realistic in our expectations. So yeah, I mean, everybody can improve. You know, everybody can get faster. Everybody can get more explosive with the proper exposure and the right training. But it's a matter of you certainly have a ceiling, right? And it's a matter of taking what you have and the tools that you have, the toolbox that you have, and maximizing, you know, building the best house that you can build with what's in your toolbox. And that's where we try to come in, and that's where we try to help.
You know, we've talked about the physical attributes and, you know, combine. I think another big aspect to training and performance is sort of mental toughness. And, you know, I know you guys have limited time with athletes unless you're working with a full team. But is there anything that you guys do to help athletes out with that sort of mental side of it so that they can stay focused? And, you know, you build all these things, but if you lose focus or you're not mentally strong in the moment, it may not come through. So what do you guys do to try to help that?
So I think for a lot of people, there's a mistake between what mental toughness is and what physical toughness is. Being physically tough is, getting tackled and then being able to get right back up for that next play. And then being mentally tough is not like, in my opinion, not stopping doing burpees when your coach is like having you do 1,000. You just keep doing, I don't know. That's physically tough. Mentally tough is showing up on time. Mentally tough is, when I was in high school, we walk in the gym, our jersey had to be tucked. We had to have our binder with us. Are you mentally tough to be able to do that every single day? And I would say, to answer your question, it definitely is harder in our space. I mean, we get these kids 2 hours, so you're trying to add those things in. But to be mentally tough is showing up on time. And if they don't show up on time, maybe nudge them a little bit. Or if, just like anything, they're talking, make sure they're not.
Yeah, I mean, I think mental toughness is a belief, right? Like a belief in yourself. Like, do you have the moxie, when you walk in the room where people are like, hey, I can rally around that guy, like, do you believe like in your abilities, your physical abilities? And that's a huge piece of it. There are a lot of kids that have the physical tools, but they don't have the 6 inches between the ears. And I think that you'll find, like, if you go and you look at the athletes in the NFL, right? Like obviously they meet a certain set of measurables, right? But number one, they've stayed injury free, and number two, they are just like mentally locked in. They are just mentally strong, tough people. How well can you climb the mountain, get knocked down, and get back up and start climbing again? And some people do that better than others. And every day is a grind. And it's not necessarily, and what I always tell people is, it's not just about showing up. It's what you do when you show up, okay? Because one, I think there are 3 levels to it. Like, okay, you have some people that just don't show up a lot. 2, you have people that do show up. But then 3, it's when I do show up, what do I do when I get there? Am I going to get after it? Am I going to compete, right? Am I going to like maximize every opportunity that I have? Or am I going to go hard, 50% of the time, 70% of the time? Okay, the people that are going to be like your most elite people, your most elite athletes, your CEOs, those sorts of things, like that is developed in sport, in my opinion. And obviously like the academic piece, like that plays into that as well. Like, but hey, what are you going to do when you show up? Right? Like, are you going to own the opportunity? Are you going to win the opportunity? Or are you just going to kind of, do it when it feels good or when it's convenient for you? And that's what I always tell kids. This isn't just about training, right? This is a lot more than training. This is about life. Okay. And I know that sounds really weird and kind of sounds goofy, but like, what are you going to do when stuff's hard? What are you going to do when you fumble? What are you going to do when you lose a game? How are you going to respond? And I think that's the biggest thing. So we're I think the biggest thing that we do is and try to do at least and what people have done for me is we want to develop those mental and physical qualities as well as their athletic qualities because they go hand in hand. And if you don't have both, you're going to be limited in some capacity. You're not going to meet your full potential. So I think the most rewarding part of my job is seeing somebody physically taking everything that they have, mentally and physically, and being as successful as possible. Because like you said, you brought up earlier how people have a certain upside. You want to see people get to the pinnacle of what they have. And very, very few people do that. So I guess hopefully that was a tangent. I kind of went off on a little tangent there, but
I was going to tell you to preach. That was good.
No, it is. It's an important thing to me. And it's an important thing to MJ and everybody at our space, and it should be to everybody that coaches and trains. Just because we don't do this for just to have people run sprints. It's about developing relationships and seeing people succeed. That's the most rewarding part of my job. Sorry.
And I think that the preparation that you guys give these athletes, we had Corey Mockery on, and he talked about, his workout. And he's one of those athletes that loves the process, right? Loves getting into the gym, loves doing, parachute runs or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And he said, it's almost unfair. And I mean, he genetically, he's a great athlete. He's just naturally a good athlete, but he also works hard, works very hard, and loves it. And would you agree that gives the mental edge too when you're that far ahead already because you've done that preparation going in?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when you've put work in and you've put time in and you believe in your abilities, that gives you a huge mental edge. And then, the next question is you go into it with that mental edge, but then if things don't go your way right away, how are you going to respond? And that's the biggest thing. And I know, like, back when I played, and I got done telling a kid this a couple weeks ago, it's when you have somebody that's ultra talented, it's what do you do when you get, a couple 3-4 yard runs or you get stuffed behind the line of scrimmage, right? Like, are you going to continue to move forward and come back for the next play? Because you can bust one out at any time, or are you going to let that kind of get in your head, right? And that comes back to the mental piece that we talked about, where, can you withstand the pressure? Can you withstand the expectations? And I think a lot of the expectations and the pressure that kids get nowadays with social media and all that sort of stuff is really kind of unfair and not I don't think it's good. I just don't think it's good, to be honest. Kind of going off topic a little bit here. Facebook came out my freshman year in college. So, like, when I went through high school, we didn't have social media, and it was hard enough back then. And here we are now. It's like everything you do is exposed out there for everybody to see. So I just think that would be really challenging. And I think that's more credit to our kids, like your Corys and just a lot of other local athletes that are in that spotlight, and their ability to continue to respond and to continue to move forward and continue to produce at a high level.
Well, I think it's hard when someone, especially for the highly recruited guys, everyone's telling you you're the greatest thing ever since you were probably 12 years old. And, you see stories all the time in college and the pros where you'll have a 2-star recruit end up being a starting running back or a starting quarterback or whatever it is, or you'll see undrafted guys beat out a guy who was drafted, in the first or second round. So going off of your point, I think it's, that daily sort of, am I going to improve? Am I going to get better? Am I going to get up when I get knocked down? Things like that.
Well, the other thing, on top of that is I think people lose the fact, you take a Corey or, Abby in lacrosse, once they're known to be the player, teams are scheming for them. Yeah. So, it's not just going out, your typical, first game of the season and you're playing where a team has actually put their game plan around stopping you. I've seen lacrosse games where Abby's covered by 3 different girls. So, I mean, it becomes more difficult all the time in different games you're playing. So
Absolutely.
that preparation, it's such a huge thing.
Yeah, I think the preparation is the biggest thing. I mean, I just remember myself back in college. My younger brother, who's playing football in college now, when he was younger, he would always be like, man, how did you and Mikhail have all this confidence when you guys were playing? I just remember you guys have so much confidence. I'm like, dude, we showed up to the gym at 6 a.m. every day. It's just, we were just felt prepared. Like, I knew whoever I'm playing against on the court right now, they didn't put the amount of work that I put in. And I think that's where most of that mental toughness and preparation comes from. I also think, too, my dad's amazing, but no matter how good we did, he'd be like, you're all right, buddy. You're all right. He's not going to tell you.
That sounds like
sweet.
Dave.
Yeah. I just think that's really important, because if these kids think that they are all this and that, where their friends are telling us, in high school, your friends are like, man, no, like, dude, you're going to be at the NBA. And then you go to AAU and you see guys who are going to go to the NBA and you're like, I got some work to do. And then your parents are telling you, you got work to do. Because I think, just remembering my dad, man, he broke like 20 records at Perry, and he went to CMU, and I think it was like eye opener. Like, oh yeah, I'm not as fast as I thought I was, not as strong as I thought I was, and so he relayed that message on to us as well. So
yeah, just to change the subject a little bit, what are some of the most common injuries that you guys see or that you help rehab?
ACL.
Yeah, probably knee injuries, ankle injuries.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that's
Sure.
that's definitely the most common. Especially,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows, just the females are just, I think naturally biomechanically they're a little bit more susceptible just with, joint angles and that sort of thing too. But and then, the amount of games that they
Sure.
play. The same parent I mentioned earlier I was talking to, and, if you look at a girls basketball team, I mean, there's at least 2 or 3 girls on every team that has a knee brace on. Yep. And I mean, when you're playing, 100, 120 basketball games over the course of the year, and you're doing it over and over again, the exposure, obviously, to all the play, and then, the biomechanical factors and the early specialization, and then maybe having some hiccups in your movement. It's just not a great recipe. So that's why I think the biggest thing that we really need to look at is, the public education system and education has gone so much to academics, and that's extremely important, right? Like the academic piece is imperative, but what about this physical piece? Like what are we doing? Like we need to understand, and we need to put the value on, being in shape, holding people accountable to like certain movement goals, or, movement aspects that just aren't there anymore. And playing games, like going to gym class and playing dodgeball and that stuff, it's great. But, can you karaoke? Can you shuffle? Can you do those things with some sort of quality, right? Like, do you meet that standard? And I don't know what that would look like. There's a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me that are working on that now, but I think that's just a really, really important piece that's missing.
Yeah, I think too, just thinking about some things that I've learned in this like rehab process of this guy's a very unique individual, and he never went through the physical therapy route. He kind of learned the stuff on his own as he was a strength coach. And I'll try to paint a picture for you, but he kind of categorized just humans into like 3 different movement patterns, and one being like an aquatic mover, where if you can imagine someone who's walking and they walk with their knee completely locked out. Well, think about where the force is going now. The force is going right into the hip and spine. So a lot of people then have knee injuries because when's the last time they've bent their knee? Probably at a really high speed, right? Never under load, never walking, never really strength training. So I see that a lot, especially with like basketball players, for whatever reason, tall, lengthier. I just try to get them to bend their knee a lot, getting lower positions. And then another category you'll see is like a quadrupedal human or a quadrupedal mammal. And those humans don't triple extend. So they're always like have a slight bend in their knee or slight bend in their elbows and hips, and can't always fully extend. And then a human would be someone who can triple extend all the way. So their joints, they load through their limbs and then they extend as well. And you just think about it, it's like, okay, yeah, well, the force is getting distributed evenly throughout the body, rather than that first person who all the force is going right into the hip and spine. Second person, they're just not able to extend, so they're constantly under load. And then the human who is being able to transmit forces more efficiently. And then for me, just being able to see those things has helped dictate a lot of the training that I'll do. Not saying that just because I see them walk like that they're always going to move like that. But if I start to notice it more, like a lot of their movement, where like, hey, absorb into your knee here, and they never do. Okay, we need to start loading you with a lot of knee flexion.
Yeah, and I think just piggybacking off that a little bit, like that was a really good explanation there. But I think the biggest thing too that we look for is synergy, right? So like if you see somebody and they're really fast and explosive straight ahead, but then you ask them to do a lateral movement and there's, it's really jerky, it's not smooth, there's not a lot of pop there, like that's a red flag, right? So I would rather have somebody that's stiff all over than somebody that's really flexible one way or moves really well in one way and not so well in another. So, obviously, like we're all different biomechanically a little bit, but it all comes down to how well we can take what we have and move it in the different ways, in the different directions, especially when you're talking, a multi-directional athlete, right? Like somebody that has to do that has to move in 3 planes of motion, that has to read, that has to react, what's your capacity, in those different directions. So I would say synergy is probably the biggest thing that I look for.
And do you guys work with adults at all? I know Alex back there said he was in a men's league baseball, doing some men's league baseball, and some of us may have had a non-contact injury playing a little men's league soccer this past winter. Do you guys ever work with adults too, or is it just high school, college?
I've worked with a lot of adults just because of CrossFit through my years. I don't as much anymore. But for a lot of adults, especially when they're playing sports, a lot of times the reason they seem to get injured is they're not working out very often, and then they're going playing these sports at these really high capacities, especially something like baseball or softball, where you're throwing that arm back. I mean, essentially you're like dislocating your arm to throw. Like, when's the last time you've trained that,
right,
or you've actually thrown? But I'm going to throw it at 80%. No, someone's about to get out and I'm chucking that ball. That's where some injuries can start happening. Like, you don't have, like I mentioned earlier, the capacities of those muscles to withstand the speed that you're going to be throwing at.
Why should we start a Foster Swift workout here? What?
No, I don't
My
think so.
knees are hurting.
No, but I think as we age, it's really important to continue moving, and it's really important to continue doing athletic things. The other one you hear about, I had one of my cousins not long ago. He was a great athlete in high school, but he went out and played pickup basketball and tore his Achilles. But it's like, okay, well, when's the last time you jumped? So those sorts of things, like, we need to be doing those things. Humans are meant to do those things. We're very sedentary in nature, especially like with the way life is now, right? We sit in class all day. We sit at work. We're on our phones. We're in front of computers, right? Like, humans are meant to move. Humans are meant to jump. They're meant to run. They're meant to shuffle. They're meant to do those things. That's why we can do them. So it's important to build that into your day, or to build it into your week in some capacity.
So I want to get both of your thoughts on some of these gadgets that are out there. I was coming back from out east with Abby from an all-star tournament, and she tells me she wants to get this watch that all the other girls on the team have. So I look up the watch to see what it is. It's like $500 a month. So one of the big things it does is it tracks sleep. I mean, she could take a nap on for 3 hours at any time. She could probably sleep on this table. Like, do you see any benefit in those things?
Here's the thing with technology. I think technology is great, but at the same time, like, we still need to, like, coach and use common sense. You can't refer to an iPad or a computer or some sort of gadget or type of technology to make every decision that you're going to make. Now, it can help dictate your decisions. It can help, like, in the thought process of it. But at the same time, I think we need to coach the individual and, use common sense. Technology is great. We use technology in a lot of different ways, but I certainly think that it's overkill to some capacity. Again, measurables are great. The feedback's great. It drives intent. It helps form decisions and helps us, be a lot more educated with what we're going to do. But at the same time, we're still people. And we're not coaching the computer. We're not coaching the timing system. We're coaching the individual. And I think that we need to take that into consideration. So to answer your question, I think some of it's overkill. And it's going to keep happening, right? Like as we get more and more, like, new stuff's coming out all the time. So it's going to be, how far do we take it? Do you really need to be focused on, is it imperative to know 8-year-old's, 10-yard sprint time?
Probably not.
No, I mean, no, just run, right? They just need to run. They just need to move. And then that will get better over time, right? And as long as we continue to move and we continue to move well, and that's the biggest thing that I preach. And as long as we do those things, you're going to improve. You're going to get better. So, I guess third time reiterating, the technology's great. We use it in a lot of different ways, but it certainly can go too far.
I think Nate answered most of the training aspect of it, but to answer your question directly of the watch, just because I've had my own experience with it, and it would something that I would want you to consider, or maybe talk to Abby about, would be like, okay, say one day you get this really good sleep. Wow, I'm feeling great. Probably going to have a good training session. What if the next day is game day and that's on like, you're on 3% recovery rate? Like, is that going to start playing a mental factor for her? It did for me. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to train today because but I felt fine. But my recovery is telling me that it's low. So that would just be something that I would consider. I mean, some teams, when I was at Central, the girls soccer team had to wear them. I think that was more so to find out if they were drinking the night before. But like I said, I as long as it doesn't play a factor into how hard she's going to go that next day. I mean, sometimes you want it to, but base that off how you feel rather than what the watch is telling you.
Yeah, you can't let technology dictate everything. And, you know, what I always tell people too is, you know, hey, just because your 10 wasn't necessarily as good today as it was yesterday, like that's the thing is a lot of times people, I think, get caught up in like doing everything based off what, you know, a computer says. And I always say, you know, as long as you're like at 90 to 95% of like what your best 10-yard time is, of what your best vertical jump is, those sorts of things, you know, you're still creating adaptation that we need to get you better long term. So point being, as a coach, you know, you kind of need to decide when you're going to implement those things. And I think that's part of the magic, is knowing when and knowing how. That's why like we don't have specific testing days. Right? Like if I get a kid and they come in and you see them and we're doing some different stuff, and, you know, we might have the Vertec out and we're jumping them in a lot of different directions, but it's not like a traditional approach jump. And you see like, shoot, man, they're pretty much already at their max approach. Hey, you feeling bouncy today? Yeah. All right. Hey, should we do it real quick? Should we just test your max approach? Heck yeah. Boom. A lot of times that's where you have your success. So I think you just build it right in and you use the technology as a tool to help guide you as a coach.
Well, thank you both for joining us today. This is a lot of good information. I guess what's your last minute or last thing you give advice to, you know, recruits out there that are looking to start training? You know, what are your last thoughts?
Just invest in moving better. Don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in a specific, hey, you know, my 40 time needs to be this. Like, start young, start at a young age. Start laying the foundation, get good at moving overall, and let the rest take care of itself, because it will. Where people, like I said earlier, where people run into issues is where you get to crunch time, we panic, and then, you know, it's too late. So invest long-term, prepare long-term. You know, small doses over time are going to be the best route to success, the best formula for success.
Yeah, I think the moving part is the hardest thing to accumulate over time. So I think the lifting, the strength, and the speed when you get to a certain point is hard. Strength when you get to a certain point is hard. But if you get the movement down in high school, where you can move extremely well, those college coaches are going to do exactly what they want you to do when you get into the weight room or speed or whatever. They can put weight on you. They can get you stronger. They'll get you faster. But you've laid such a good foundation for yourself to be extremely successful, rather than like you walk in, you're strong, but you move horribly. Your chances of injury go way up, and then you're kind of moving backwards to try to move forward again. So I think a lot of people want to get strong, want to get fast, like right now, where I'm like, settle down. That will come, a lot of it with just age. So just move extremely well, be the best mover, and then the strength will come.
And how can people find you guys? Reach out to you guys.
Instagram's great. We have a website, which it's kind of sad that the day and age of websites is kind of drifted away. So the website, I've kind of let that drop down, but we still do have a website as well. But I would say social media, Facebook, Instagram, and then we have our website, which is www.3dathletes.com as well. So
awesome.
Perfect.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys having us.
Yeah, thank you. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks so
being here.
much.
Definitely a lot of fun. So keep crushing the game.
Love it.
Thanks, guys.
Well,
Thank you.